Hello and welcome to tonight's Careers Insight alumni panel at the University of Exeter. It's so great to see you all here this evening. Lovely to see you. So, this session is all about hearing real stories from our graduates, how they went from school or college onto university and into their career journeys. You will have the opportunity to gain tips and advice as well as to ask the speakers questions yourselves. So, what we ask is that you please post your questions in the chat and we will do our best to answer as many of them as we can. We'll start with some questions from me as the host, and then we'll move to your questions in the chat. So, please feel free to start adding those at any point. If you have a question, we'll get to them, as many of them as we can. If you're having any difficulties accessing the chat and you do have a question, you can feel free to use the raise hand function and we'll call on you to ask over the microphone if that's your only way of asking a question. It's no problem. Just a little note regarding any questions about entry requirements or grades, we do recommend just checking the website because that will have the most up-to-date information because this kind of information may have changed since our panelists were at university. So yeah, please do take a look at the website if you do have questions about that. I will now introduce our brilliant panelists who have joined us today. So panelists, when I call on you, can you please tell us your name, what you studied at university, and what your current job is? So I'm going to start with Kerry.
Hi, I'm Kerry. It's so lovely to be here. And I studied English and history with Spanish and graduated about 3 years ago now. And I currently work as a publishing coordinator at an audiobook publishers that is based in Oxford.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kerry. Jemima.
Hi everyone, it's really great to meet you. My name's Jemima and I studied English and graduated in 2022. So I've been in the workplace now for 3.5 years. I work in London as Development and Events Manager, which is fundraising and events at Polka Theatre, which is a children's theatre based in South London in Wimbledon.
Great. Thank you so much. And Barry.
Hi, my name's Vari. I studied history at Exeter and I graduated in 2020. And I currently work as a journalism researcher at the BBC in London.
Thanks, Barry. That's great. And finally, Millie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Millie. I studied English at the University of Exeter, graduated in 2022, and I'm currently working as a digital marketing coordinator at the Harry Potter Studio Tour. I've been there about 3.5 years now.
Thank you all so much. It's great to have done introductions. So, thank you again for joining us today. Again, as I said, it's great to see you. Just a reminder to our panel, please use the raise hand function when I ask a question. We had a little practice of that before, and I will call on you to answer. So, as soon as you're ready to answer the question, just pop your hand up. And also, if it doesn't work at any point, feel free to use this kind of hand as well. So, my first question is when you were in school or college, what were you thinking about your future in terms of university and career? Did you have a clear plan or were you figuring it out as you went along? Kerry.
I didn't have a clear plan at all. I think when I was younger, I was very much, I knew what I enjoyed doing, but I couldn't imagine doing a career in that field. I thought that I would have to work in an office and work in something nondescript that I didn't really enjoy just because that's what I'd seen from the adults around me. So I very much had it in my head that I'm going to go into economics or finance or something. And I think it was only really maybe around the time I was doing A levels and I loved reading. And my English teacher said to me, like, why don't you do English at uni? And I think so. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. But I didn't really have an idea, even when I went to uni, what job I'd end up in. And I think it was going to similar talks like this while I was at uni that then made me think, oh, I could have a career in publishing, I can have a career in books. But it's very much a figure it out as I went kind of thing.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kerry. And it's so true that when you're going through like thinking, what do I want to do? And you think it's one thing and then you end up finding out, oh, actually, this other thing may be for me, which that's wonderful to hear. Thank you. Jemima.
I'm muted. I'm unmuted now. I was quite similar to Kerry, actually. I really wasn't too sure what my kind of career or end goal was as such. I loved theatre and performing and drama in school, and really enjoyed art and creative writing. And for me, I felt that the only kind of careers that I was aware of that were both theatre were either on the stage or performing, or the kind of stage management or putting on a show that way. I wasn't really too sure what those careers in the arts looked like, but I knew that that was kind of my favorite thing to do growing up. That's what my hobbies were. I also was kind of really considering the route of whether I wanted to go for drama school to pursue that direct acting route, or whether I wanted to then go to university and study the subjects that I really love and knew that I was passionate about from my GCSEs to then starting my A levels. I decided that I wanted to study at university. I did really enjoy school, and I loved the subjects that I was studying. So I decided to go down that route. To begin with, I was actually studying English and drama, but then decided after my first year at Exeter that, well, I got FOMO. There were too many great modules that I decided I wanted to do the English side, and then I could do the drama societies alongside that, which there were loads of at Exeter. So yeah, I think it was through trying different things, and I also took part in the career mentor scheme at Exeter, which might come up again later, but that was something that really helped me identify different pathways and avenues within theatre and the arts, which is ultimately how I came into fundraising and understanding what else is out there.
Thanks so much, Jemima. I was in a very similar boat to you, actually. I again, the being very torn between, for me, it was like English drama and film, and in the end, I think I compromised. I found a good. I wouldn't say it was quite compromised. It was more like where you find what you want, which is I ended up doing English, did a lot of film modules, got involved in drama societies, and then ended up doing theatre for my master's degree. So it just all works out, doesn't it? In the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Jemima. Millie.
So I am quite similar actually in that I also don't think I necessarily had a clear vision of what I wanted to do whilst I was studying at school. Again, when I picked my university degree, it was kind of just based on what I'd really enjoyed learning about previously. I'd always really enjoyed English, always loved reading. But I don't think it was necessarily chosen with a career in mind. I just wanted to learn more about it. So obviously studied that at university, and even going through university, I think a few different career options kind of cropped up here and there. So I considered publishing for a little while, actually did a publishing module. Journalism was another thing I considered. So I actually joined the Exposé, so the newspaper. I was part of the online newspaper team for that. And I also did a publishing module. And it was actually through that that I kind of got to know the digital landscape a little bit more. So sort of using the systems to upload articles and things like that. And through the publishing module that I did, got a bit of an insight into the world of marketing and sort of maybe a different industry, but how marketing kind of works. But it wasn't really until after graduating when I really sort of considered my options and looked at what I'd really enjoyed and decided that this was a route I sort of wanted to consider, and ended up where I am now. So yeah.
Thanks, Millie. And yeah, that's totally good advice already about like joining the student newspaper and getting involved in all these extracurriculars. I'm sure it'll come up later as well. But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Millie. And Vari.
Yeah, I think I'm the same as everyone else. I didn't know when I was applying to university, or even when I was there, what I wanted to do longer term. I knew what subjects I had enjoyed studying at school, and I knew I wanted to carry on. But I really didn't have any idea of what career I wanted to do afterwards. I think doing history, everyone tells you your options are kind of the main option all my friends were talking about was doing a law conversion. And I considered that for a bit. But yeah, I didn't really had no idea until like Millie after university. I did some work experience at my local paper in between my second and third year, and that was what made me first think about journalism. But it didn't feel like something, kind of like Kerry said, it didn't feel like something I could necessarily pursue. But I graduated in 2020, so in COVID, which gave me, in a weird way, a bit of a longer time to think about what I wanted to do. And then, yeah, it was really after graduation that I started thinking about pursuing a career in journalism and heading down that path.
Thanks, Vari. Thank you. And that's really interesting to hear about your work experience as well. I'm sure that attendees are going to be really curious to hear about that. So thank you. Thanks to all of you for your brilliant answers to the first question. It's been really interesting to hear about your journeys and your thoughts at that point. I'm going to go on to question two. I'm just going to bring it up in front of me. So, yeah, this is the natural next step, which is, can you talk us through your journey from going to university to what you're doing now in your career? Barry.
Yeah, so as I said, I graduated in COVID, which made me maybe a bit different to everyone else on the panel. Um, and at first, I just did an admin office job for the first year, but that gave me a chance to really think about what I wanted to do. And I hated my office admin job, so it kind of cleared up for me that that wasn't where my future was. But the main thing that I did was try and get as much work experience as I could. So I did a week's work experience in a law firm, didn't like that. And then more and more, I just tried to pick up work experience at my local newspaper and the online version, and just kind of went from there, really. And then when I decided I had got enough of a sense of what I wanted to do, I'd saved up money while I was working, and I applied to an NCTJ course, which is like the vocational sort of masters for journalism. And I moved to London, did that, and then, yeah, it was a couple of months after that that I managed to get my first job at the BBC. And I've been there ever since, I think 3 and a bit years now.
Thanks, Vari. That's really interesting to hear. And I'll move on to Kerry.
So I think while I was at uni, I made an effort to join societies and join different clubs. And one of the societies I was part of was the publishing press, or I guess the university publishing house down in Cornwall. And I loved doing that so much. I was editor in chief, and we did different magazine publications. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I want to go down this route, but I wasn't sure at that point. I still didn't know, like, how do you get into publishing? How does that work? And it was just before I graduated that I said I went to a talk like this, and I heard from other people working in publishing. And I thought, that sounds really interesting. Like, getting to actually work in books, that's a thing. So I decided to do a master's in publishing, which I've heard from my colleagues in publishing that it's maybe like half the people that work in publishing do a master's in it and the other half don't. And I think it's pretty much personal preference, but I wanted more time to see if it was for me. So when I did that, it turns out it was for me, and I found it so interesting. And I had an internship working for a publishing place in London, and absolutely loved that, and just getting to talk to people about books all day. And I thought, I can't believe this is an actual job. So from that, I then applied to other publishing jobs. And when I graduated, I started at one in Oxford, where I still am now, and I joined as assistant, and then got promoted a year ago, I think, to be a coordinator there.
Amazing. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you. And Jemima.
Yeah, so in terms of my journey through going to university, as I'd mentioned, I started studying English and drama, and societies were a real key part of that. And definitely in terms of my identity and passions at Exeter, I really enjoyed taking part in a lot of the different productions. I also sang in several of our Exeter's choirs as well. So really just got to enjoy being creative, and yeah, that really solidified that was a real passion for me. And then one of the key things that I did alongside studying was the career mentor scheme in my final year at Exeter. On the approach to that, I was really unsure of whether I wanted to do a master's in creative writing and to pursue down that route. And ultimately, applying to the career mentor scheme was one of the best things that I did during my time at Exeter. I was paired with a mentor that was a producer in the West End, and she was able to introduce me to different people over those 6 months that worked across theatre, and was said to me kind of, will you present me with different industries that within, so whether that's a writer, director, someone that works in events, also outreach, which is then how I came across a charity that was called Mousetrap, that's now called Go Live Theatre Projects. They're based in London, and they enable young people to access theatre through tickets and through projects. And they introduced me to them, and I realised very early on that actually I want to use my skills through communication and whether that's written, speaking to people to raise funds so that young people can access theatre. And I realised that was where my passion was. So from there, I applied for an internship when that was released, and then did that internship over the summer, and then they offered me a full-time role in their fundraising team after the 3 months where I spent there. And then from then on, I worked there for 2 years as their development officer, where I gained experience in events, but also in fundraising with individuals through grant applications. And then after 2 years, moved to Polka Theatre, where I am now as their development and events manager.
Thanks, Jemima. It's also exciting hearing about your journeys. Honestly, I'm just thinking like, oh, sounds brilliant. Thank you. And finally, Millie.
So yeah, as I mentioned before, I didn't necessarily have like a really clear vision of exactly what career I wanted to go into, but I just knew bits and pieces around what I'd enjoyed and had a rough idea of potential sort of pathways I could go down. So when I finished university, I'd actually moved away to Exeter for university, so the logical step was to move back home. And I kind of looked for more local jobs there. I kind of wanted just to gain some office experience, admin experience, and sort of grow my portfolio in that sense and sort of those soft skills. So I actually ended up getting a job in a company back home. It was actually a recruitment company, and I ended up doing like talent coordinating, so conducting interviews and things like that. But as part of that job, I was also overseeing the company's social media and helping out with their website, so like job posting but also updating it, making sure the content was really relevant, and that I really enjoyed. So I actually spoke to my managers in that company and sort of mentioned that was something I was really enjoying. They were keen to do more of it, so I actually ended up moving into a role there that was specific to being like a marketing assistant. And looked to sort of develop my areas there a bit more. They brought in a contractor who I worked with who had like 10 years experience in marketing. And I just met with her remotely like once a week and managed to get a lot of insight and information and really sort of develop my skills in those areas. And it was after a year in that company that I decided I was ready for the next step. So applied for my current role, managed to get it. Moved away again. And like I say, I've managed to, I've been here now for 3.5 years, 2.5 years. I'm losing track, but really enjoying it. So yeah, I've kind of done a bit of everything.
Thanks, Millie. Again, your journeys are also interesting. So thank you for sharing them with us. I'll move on to third question, which is thinking about your time at university. What did you learn or gain that's helped to get you to where you are now? And I think this is going to be posted in the chat as well. Oh, Kerry.
For sure, I would say the main thing I learned is just what I loved and what I'm passionate about and how to convey that passion. I was thinking about this recently because I was asking my boss why she hired me. Just out of interest, I was like, "Oh, it's been a few years now. Why did you decide to hire me?" And she said it was just because I was so excited about the books we were talking about in my interview. And I think that stems from at uni being surrounded by people in my course who also love what I love and who all got so excited talking about books. And I think I've never been in an environment before where I just got to talk about books all the time. And I just found it so exciting. And I think that's a thing that was really brought out of me at uni. I think before that, I was always a bit shy at school and I wasn't sure what to say and I didn't really want to, put my hand up in class, that kind of thing. And then I was surrounded by like-minded people and I just got to chat to them all the time. And I think I was really encouraged at uni to just be passionate about it. And that's something now, like, I think publishing is such a social industry, and you go out for all these meetings and different dinners and events with other people in publishing. And because everyone's so chatty, and you all love books, that's pretty much what you talk about all the time. So I think honestly, sometimes it just is your personality and your passion that really gets you places. It's not always like the different skills you pick up. Obviously, that's really important. But I think honestly, it can sometimes just be your passion that really like tips you over the edge.
That's some really good advice there as well. The idea of your passion showing through and how important that can be. Oh, thank you, Carrie. Barry.
I think I'd say what I learned from studying history was it really gave me a lot of the skills that I use still all the time in my journalism job today. So it gave me the confidence to learn how to look at different pieces of information or different perspectives and kind of with a critical eye and think about whether or not why they would be telling you something, what the context is, give you that analytical skill to take large bits of information and figure out what you think about it, which we'd started doing at A level. But I think at university, it was a really safe environment to learn these new skills and get things wrong with people there to kind of steer you in the right direction, which was really nice. And then same as Kerry, I think just figuring out at university what you're passionate about. There were some modules that I did that I absolutely loved, and then some that I thought sounded really good, and I started learning them and I thought, actually, this isn't what I wanted to do. It's not what I thought. And it gives you a chance to try lots of different things. That I did the same as you, Melissa. I did a film module instead of a history module for one of my second year terms, and ended up absolutely loving it and loving the way people take what's written down in books. I did an adaptation module, so it was what's written in books and how that adapts onto the screen. And even though I didn't think about it at the time, now that's what I do. I spend my whole day doing at work is writing scripts for podcasts and thinking about how they'll sound when they're put with the sound effects and what the finished product will be. So even though while I was studying, I didn't have a journalism career in mind, there's actually a lot of overlap, and I still use so many of the things that I learned today, which has just been really rewarding. So yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was worth it in the end, definitely.
Thanks, Vari. And it's so interesting about how, for those of you who are in attendance, that when you're at university, while you can pick a degree, there is often such a thing as modularity, where you can pick modules from different departments. So if you are feeling like, oh, I'd love to dabble in a different subject, a lot of the time at university there are ways of doing that, and in ways that, like for you, Vari, can be really rewarding, and for me as well, of course, in my own experience as well, being able to pick and choose. And so I do recommend, for those of you in attendance, do look up modules for degrees and find out what inspires you when you're looking at different courses. Thanks, Vari. Jemima.
Yeah, I completely agree with Kerry about passion. I think that going to university and studying something and just being surrounded by like-minded people is one of the best things, because in seminars, when you're discussing something, it's so interesting the way that, you know, people have that different perspectives can challenge you, the way in which you can articulate and form an opinion in a way that's different to when you're kind of studying in school and told this is how you approach this kind of question. It's really great in terms of being able to think critically and form your own opinion. So that's something I really enjoyed, and just being in a place where you can just be so passionate. I know that that's something that I carry with me through to my job now. It's something that in fundraising is so important, that you can articulate why something needs support and why people should be inspired by something. And they're things that I've taken that from my degree in Exeter, convincing someone of an argument in an essay, or why I enjoyed a certain text, into what I do now in my day job. I also think that what's really unique in my time at university is just managing different projects and different modules. Now working in events, it was crucial at the time at university to be able to have different deadlines going concurrently and being able to manage those. And I remember in my second year, I had a really heavy reading term, and I had almost kind of like, you know, my time blocked out of when I was doing that so I could make sure everything was ready for seminars. So I think that, yeah, being able to manage my time was something that, you know, I take across now into my career. And I ultimately think as well, because the majority of my degree was completed during the pandemic, I think that that passion matters more than ever, and being able to manage that time, because for you know, a year of my studying, you know, the societies and social life didn't function in the same way. So actually being passionate about what I was doing and being surrounded by like-minded people and really forging that community were more essential than ever. So yeah, that's kind of what I took through my degree into now, but also what was really important during the time.
Thanks, Jemima. It's so true. Passion gets you places, doesn't it? And also about those other skills that you gain through your degree, like, yeah, managing your time, deadlines. They're all things that are very, very useful in the workplace. So thank you. Thank you so much. And Millie.
I think when you first look at what subjects I studied and then what my career is now, it maybe looks like at an initial glance, there's not maybe a direct tie there, but definitely so much of what I learned at university was really helpful for now, you know, in my day-to-day job. I think English as a subject in general is all about sort of looking at different moments in time and what was going on at the time, and thinking about how you know, thinking in different ways and then communicating that in different ways, which is a lot of what I do now. So even thinking about like social media and the landscape there, like looking at what's happening in culture and sort of being able to make a piece out of that and communicate something to an audience is obviously really important. And I think what Jemima was saying about seminars and being able to bounce ideas off of different of each other and different people and hear different opinions and things like that is really important in marketing. Obviously all ideas stem from this great collaboration. So all the team projects and things that we would have worked on were really helpful now in terms of those sort of soft skills. And then obviously a lot of copywriting. So actually my current role, I seem to be the go-to copywriter now for anything, whether it's a newsletter, social media caption, even down to like packaging for food and beverage. So that's really played a part there. And then I also think, like I said earlier, those societies that I joined, so like the expose, that was maybe going into it, I thought that would be a more, you know, leading more into the journalism route. But off the back of that, I learned how to use the content management system to upload all of these articles and things like that, which actually is the same content management system I use in my current job. So when I went for the interview, I already knew how to use that software. So actually it's been really helpful in my current role, definitely.
Yeah, that's a big plus, isn't it? But oh, it's like I already know how to use this system, so that's it goes to show building up these skills through things like not only your degree but also societies, really, really useful. So no, it's great that you gained that experience and gained all those skills, and the same to everybody as well. Thank you so much for your wonderful answers there. I'm just going to ask the next question, which is. If someone here is interested in your subject area or your industry, what would you recommend that they focus on or start doing now? I mean, obviously, this is a panel that's about, careers in media, cultural, and creative industries. So I'll just say that again. If someone here is interested in your subject area or industry, rather, and industry, what would you recommend they focus on or start doing now? Vari.
I think I would say if you're interested in journalism, the best thing and the most valuable thing for me was just trying to get that work experience. That I know it's really, really hard to get work experience, but even if it's just in your local paper or your local radio station, and even if you email them and just say, can I come and shadow someone on the team for a day or something, I think the most valuable part of me deciding my career was doing that experience at my local paper and thinking, if I enjoy this, then I'll enjoy it on a much bigger level as well. That there were a lot of things and careers that I considered doing that then when I gave them a try weren't what I'd expected. And so I was very grateful in a way for doing a history degree and then transferring over to journalism, similar to a lot of the others on the panel. They did a kind of subject degree and then changed to a vocation. I think it gave me a bit more time to really think about what I wanted to do, and also gave me space to explore lots of different things and then think about my career kind of as I went rather than committing too early to something and then realizing it wasn't actually for me. But yeah, work experience. And I always remember my parents saying this to me, and it used to really annoy me, but like genuinely just emailing people and asking for advice or thinking about if you want to get into TV, watching a lot of it, thinking about what sort of TV journalists you like, what sort of style you'd want to do, and just trying as much as you can to immerse yourself in the career that you might want to go into means that when you're going into university and doing your first interviews, you've got a good idea of the sort of things you like already. And that can kind of help steer you through, even if you don't know what the end goal is. At least you're ruling things out.
Thanks, Vari. Thank you. And Kerry.
Yeah, I think Vara made a great point there about immersing yourself in the industry or the subject you're interested in. That's so important. I say publishing specifically, that honestly just reading and reading what you love is amazing. That's a great start. I think in my job now, I am so often pitched different books and then it's compared to other books. And so it's always helpful to know like what books are around and if we're deciding on what kind of genres of books do we want to publish next, then it's great to know like what's popular at the moment. So even things like just going into Waterstones and seeing what's on the front tables or following publishers on social media, see what books they have coming out. But I think honestly just a love for reading and reading as much as you can or as widely as you can. Um, or I think as well, just having an interest in specific authors, maybe. But I do think it is all about that, just sort of finding out about the industry, finding out what's going on, and publishing specifically. There's a website, well, a magazine called The Bookseller, and there's loads of really interesting articles in that, so you can see that online. Um, and I'd say also, if it's difficult to get work experience, because I know I definitely struggled with that, I think making your own work experience in a way. So, for instance, I started my own podcast, which I know is like a bit cliche. That's what a lot of people do now. But yeah, and I just spoke about books on that. So it's just showing that you do have an interest in it, even if you can't actually manage to go out and get experience at an actual company.
Thanks, Kerry. Thank you so much. And Jemima.
Yes, I think that straight away I thought Vari had such a great point about reaching out to people. I found that when I was in my final year at university, I met with quite a few people over coffee, some that were set up by my career mentor, but some that they then introduced me to other people or people that I reached out to on LinkedIn. So I definitely think it's a great idea to think about people who are currently working in the jobs that you'd be interested to hear more about, because more often than not, people are very generous with their time and are willing to speak to you about what you're interested in. I think with the arts, there are so many different jobs that aren't the kind of the conventional on stage, off stage roles. So I definitely think finding ways to kind of discover what those would be and what you'd be interested in are really, really valuable. I know that there are, and I know these are mainly London based, but I believe they are either free or online. But Masterclass is a charity for young people to be able to, I think it's up to 25 to be honest, but for free tickets and events to access in the arts, but also Theatrecraft, which is in London, but I think they moved online, is for people at university age or still in school that are wanting to get into the arts. It used to be hosted at the Royal Opera House, but I think they moved it online, and you can meet with people who are working in the arts. Most venues and organisations have a presence at Theatrecraft, so you can talk to them about how to get involved, whether that's at drama schools or whether that's in an agent or whether that is with some of the bigger venues themselves. So I definitely recommend looking at Theatrecraft or things like that. But also I think with the arts, I think it comes back to passion, which we've said earlier. I know Kerry touched on it with reading as well. I think being able to engage with things. I know that with theatre in particular, there are barriers to accessing that, but finding free and local things that you can engage with. I know that a lot of things are uploaded onto like YouTube, for example. The National Theatre has just streamed the importance of being earnest for free for anyone to access. So I think it's just finding ways in which you can engage with arts and culture and really just developing and nurturing that passion, because I don't think you need to be right now thinking, gosh, I must get this internship and this work experience. Like, just enjoying what you're passionate about, and then later down the line when you are in the position where you really want to start thinking about it, then there are loads of resources and speaking to people that you can then pursue. But yeah, I think to begin with, definitely just enjoying what you're passionate in.
Thanks, Jemima. Thank you. I'm loving all this advice from all of you. It's great. Thank you. Millie.
I would definitely say if you've got a specific subject area you're interested in, just definitely hone your passions and skills in that area. Because I think if you take every opportunity you can, you'll probably end up gaining a load more skills that maybe you didn't even realize you'd have by the end of it. I mean, that's what I did going into the shoot newspaper and doing this publishing module. It was just stuff that I was interested in that maybe didn't lead to the direct route I thought it would, but I ended up gaining all these other skills anyway. And then I think for like marketing specifically, if you're interested in that area, definitely just stay up to date with what's going on sort of in the current landscape. Obviously a lot's changing, and it always is changing, and that's the whole point of marketing. So make sure you're staying up to date with the news, get on social media. I think social media is probably one of the most accessible entry points. So gaining any experience you can, just getting involved in and understanding the platforms, maybe try creating some content, anything that you can share if you're going for an interview, or just showing you have an awareness of how things work is really, really useful. And then any soft skills you can sort of develop, so which you'll mostly probably do for university anyway. So I know, as Jemima was saying, sort of all this project management and organization is really important. So yeah, that would be my top advice, really.
Thanks, Millie. And as I said before, thank you, everyone. It's been really great hearing your advice on what your recommendations are in terms of what our attendees could be thinking about, and like talking about things like resources, and like there are a lot of free resources out there. That was really interesting to hear. Again, great. So I think what we're going to do, we've just gone past 6:40 now. It's now 6:42. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to have a 5-minute screen break where myself and the panelists will just switch off our screens for 5 minutes. During that time, those of you who are watching, feel free to have a walk around, grab a glass of water or something, whatever you'd like to do. But very importantly as well, if you could please, those of you who are watching, if you have questions that you want to ask after the break, we're going to start answering questions from you, from those of you who are in this call, in this meeting. So please do post your questions during the break, and we will do our best to get through as many of them as possible. So yeah, get thinking now, pop them in the chat. It's now 6:43, so what we'll do is we'll break for 5 minutes and we'll come back at 6:40. Just doing my maths, 6:48, 6:48. So we'll see you in 5 minutes. Have a lovely break. So thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a really lovely 5 minute break. What we're going to do now is we are going to take some questions from the chat. I can already see some questions have started coming in, so do keep them coming and we'll get through as many of them as we can. But I'll just go from the top. And as I said, please keep posting throughout and we'll get to as many of them as we're able to. One moment. Let's see. The first question I can see. Okay, so we've got a question here from an attendee who is interested to know what A levels you all did and how much you think that mattered for your degree. Whether that, and I'll add there whether you did A levels or BTEC or higher or whatever qualifications you did. What did you do, and how did you think it mattered for your degree? Jemima.
I studied, I did two AS levels. I did media and English language at AS, but then full A levels, I studied English, literature, drama and art. So was very creative across the board, going into doing English and drama to begin with, but then English. My A levels were pretty essential. I think that they were within the offer requirements, but having English at A level to then go into it at university was great because it just gives you that basis of studying something more critically beyond GCSE. So yeah, I do think that was quite important, but I do think within the arts, I think something we've touched on is transferable skills and soft skills. So with all of my things I studied at A level, like they all just fed into my degree really nicely, and then the workplace.
Thanks, Jemima. Thanks, Jemima. No, I know it's so true. It's so true that it just works itself. It just works itself out with transferable skills. So it goes to show that there are A levels or qualifications that can be really useful, but you gain a lot of very similar transferable skills through lots of different routes. So everyone in attendance, never let that put you off. If you're interested in something, go for it. Thanks, Jemima. Millie.
So I studied English literature, history, and geography at A level. So a lot of humanities there. But I definitely think it was all helpful when it came to studying English at university. Obviously, English is a given. I feel like thinking more critically and writing in that sort of academic style, developing that a bit more at college was really helpful. History was actually probably most impactful as well because a lot of the English degree that I studied at the University of Exeter was deeply rooted in history. So looking at texts, way back before, the earliest texts, for example, and just having an awareness of sort of how culture can impact that and what was happening at the time can impact that was really helpful. And then across all of them, obviously that was a lot of writing and academic study. So that came in really helpful in terms of sort of researching and understanding how to argue ideas and communicate ideas. So all three definitely came in really helpful.
Thanks, Millie. Thank you. And Vari.
So I studied history, English literature, psychology, and philosophy. And I think, same as Millie and Jemima, what I would say was that by choosing, when I chose my A levels, I didn't know what I wanted to do at university. But I think just by choosing subjects that you like, it helps you kind of narrow down over time into what you want to do. So they all, even though I ended up studying history, the English and psychology and philosophy taught me a lot about like the different ways to write. So even though they were all humanities, they all had different writing styles in our essays, and we approached all of the content in a different way that I think it kind of rounded out my writing style in a way that if I'd known maybe in advance I was just going to do history, I wouldn't have had those sort of extra skills and different ways of looking at things. So English taught me how to analyze language in a more creative way than I probably would have. And then same with philosophy and psychology. It's just helping you to think about things outside of your subject. I think that always enhances your knowledge for then whatever you do decide to do. So even if your subjects, I had people in my course that did history at university, but they studied chemistry at A level as one of their subjects because they loved it. And you don't necessarily think that they link up, but actually it gave them a really good different way of viewing data or sources that I didn't have. So as long as you do what you enjoy, I think that's what will carry through to university. There's always transferable skills that you can take along with you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Fari. It's true that a lot of like you can meet a lot of people who've come from like a diversity of background in terms of what A levels or various qualifications that they've done, but you find it just brings a lot of different things to the table, and in that sense that there is no right or wrong approach. So thank you. And Kerry.
I'd say if, for instance, you ended up doing English at uni, it would make sense to do English A level. But I would say that, as everyone's touched on, if you do a variety of A levels, like I have so many friends who did like a humanities and they did a science and then maybe did art, and they've all ended up in various places and did various things at uni. And I mean, in my industry now you would expect maybe people in publishing did English at uni, but actually a lot of them did maybe like geography or like business. And it's what Melissa was saying about how there's so many transferable skills. So I honestly think it's not like when you pick your A levels, you're locked in now. It's like, oh, I've chosen English and now I have to do English at uni and then I have to work in publishing. It's definitely not be all and end all. I think that's what I was worried about when I was picking my A levels. And I thought, am I deciding my career now? But there are honestly so many different paths that you can go down that it's just best to just start with what you enjoy and then just go from there and see what happens.
Thanks, Kerry. It's true. I mean, you're all examples of this. You've done a degree, and you've all gone on very different pathways. So it's great. It's great. You're never pigeonholed into a box or anything like that. There's so many transferable skills that you gain from your A levels or equivalent going on to university and whatever job you may go into. So it's great. It's great to think about that. I think the only thing I would add to that as well is if there is a course that you're interested in, I kind of mentioned this earlier at the beginning, do make sure that you check the entry requirements for that course. And if it does require a specific subject, just make sure that you've noted that down, and that's something that's very easy to research. So yeah, do take a look at that. Yeah, thanks everyone for answering that question. It's great to hear. So another question I can see is I can see none of you did art specifically, but is it possible that you could provide me an opinion on whether art is worth doing at university? And I wondered, I know none of you did art, but I wonder if any of you would like to comment on that. Kerry.
Yeah, I think this leads on quite nicely from what I was trying to say to answer the last question. And I would say it's definitely worth doing. I mean, I think just doing what you love will just get you very far. And honestly, so some of my best friends did art at uni, and again, they've all gone on to do different things. But I think we've all gotten so much out of uni because we ended up doing what we loved. And then it's not limited us going forward either. So some of my friends who did art at uni, one of them, she's doing a lot of her own shows in galleries. Another one has gone into doing architecture and designing spas. Another one's gone on to go and work more corporately and just doing business and doing marketing. So I think it's not, as I said, I wouldn't worry too much from my perspective of going and doing something at uni and then thinking, oh, that means I can't go and do something else later in life or anything like that at all. I think honestly, like my perspective, honestly, just go for it.
Thanks, Kerry. Thank you. That was a great answer. Millie.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that actually, and just say I think it's definitely, as I mentioned earlier, worth sort of pursuing what you're passionate about. Um, but I also think university offers you a really good opportunity outside of your subject, also like, you know, pick up new skills and develop in different areas. So like looking at different societies, if you've got other interests, so you're sort of expanding into those, picking up the resources that are available to you. So I definitely think whilst your subjects obviously, you know, that's what you're going to be studying, it's definitely worth thinking about what you enjoy and what you're passionate about. Outside of that, there are all these other opportunities to also develop even further and think about different areas that maybe aren't even tied to your subject at all. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity to develop in different ways.
Oh, it's so true. Thank you. Thanks, Millie. Jemima.
Yeah, I completely agree with what everyone's just said. I think that it's definitely worth pursuing. I think the course at Exeter, I think, is art history, but there are also other various art courses. But I had friends that similarly that studied across those that have entered a vast different variety of industries. And alongside, depending on the practical nature of those kind of courses, you are still building up that same level of soft skills, whether that's critically writing about, I know with art history, it's critically writing about pieces or time periods within art as well. So those skills that you will pick up can be adapted and used across industries, whether that is within the arts or whether that then does span into something broader. And yeah, as everybody's already said, I think that you're not necessarily shoehorning yourself into one direction by studying, something that you're passionate about. I think that will come across and shine. However you choose to, pursue that, but definitely go for it if that's what you're interested in.
Thanks, Jemima. Thank you. And Fari.
Yeah, I think I just echo what everyone else has said about. I think I remember when I was choosing what university to go to and what course to do, it felt like it is a really big decision, but it felt like a decision where you have to get it right. This is your kind of one chance, and that's it. But actually, I think as long as you're pursuing something that you want to do and you're always moving closer to what you enjoy, like as long as every step forward is closer to what you'd like, I think the main thing for me is coming out of university and still there are so many jobs out there in the world that I didn't even know existed when I was applying to university, that the more you go through life and the more you start your job and then you move sideways, everyone I speak to, no one has a kind of linear career path, that as long as you're pursuing something that you like and you think doing art could sustain you for those 3 years, then as everyone says, you're going to get those transferable skills. And you never know, one day that might be what sets you apart from another applicant when you're applying for your dream job, because it's that proof of passion from ages ago that you didn't think was relevant at the time, but it could come back and be really useful.
Thanks, Fari. Thanks, everyone, as well. And thank you for that question. Like the last two questions, thank you to attendees who posted those. It's great. I'm going to go through a couple more. So I've got here a question, which is what support or resources did you get from the university that helped you most towards the career that you have today? So specifically, support from the university or resources from the university. Jemima.
So I had some really fantastic seminar leaders. My dissertation supervisor was also really fantastic. And it was really great being able to build relationships with members of staff at the university, as not only were they able to give like practical advice throughout my course, but they were those first people that were able to kind of signpost what was I thinking of doing afterwards. Like I mentioned earlier, I obviously had considered doing a master's, but also just being able to encourage me during my studies of in my third year, I alongside my dissertation sat in on an additional module that my dissertation supervisor was running, which was really useful as it helped influence my dissertation and things like that. And yeah, I mean, just to touch on it again, the careers hub at Exeter is fantastic. There are lots of lectures, and I think there was a portal that we used at the time that was just really helpful in terms of advice. And there are lots of really great opportunities there. I know there's a paid internship opportunity in the third year, as well as obviously mentioning the career mentor scheme, which really is just it was absolutely invaluable for me in my career. So I think there are so many opportunities at Exeter in terms of to set you up for your career, but I think it's about being proactive and asking about those, and listening to the people that are around you, so that you can find and navigate those to make the most of it, so that you can jump into a career and help kind of forward your path with what you're thinking of doing.
Thanks, Jemima. Yeah, it's true. Being proactive can be a big part of finding success at university and just going for it. So that's some really good advice. Thank you. Vari.
Yeah, definitely. Just to echo Jemima, I think being proactive is so important, that there are so many opportunities available that I think looking back, there are things that I would have done or made the most of that I maybe didn't. Like, I didn't use the careers hub, and hearing Jemima talk about it, I'm like, that sounds fab. I definitely should have done that. But even just things like within your degree, being able to do those module swaps with different degrees. I think being able to take a language on the side of your degree, or do things like a year abroad or a year in industry, all of those kind of extra add-ons and shifts that you can do to your core degree make such a difference. And some of those things, a lot of my friends who did year in industries, for example, they then got jobs with that company outside of after they graduated. So, or even if they didn't, they had a mentor scheme because of that then kind of helped them get through the kind of initial graduation stage of applying for jobs and getting interviews. So I think just making the most of what's there for you, whether that's staff who are really helpful, and if you find someone who teaches a course that you love, you can speak to them about it. There's so much information and resources available that it's definitely worth making the most of it. It seems quite scary at the time, but even if you're not sure what you want to do, just asking for that help and exploring things is always worth it, because it might just be the little thing that helps you unlock the career that you end up really enjoying.
Thanks, Vari. It's reminded me actually that there are, things like there are a lot of opportunities like study abroad, like work abroad, or year in industry, and we also have like the language center as well at Exeter. So if you're thinking that you wanted to do a language, but you didn't necessarily want to do it as a degree, there are lots of opportunities to do a language while you're studying. So these are things that are always worth looking at now. Also, a little tip I'll give as well, if you're interested in doing like study abroad or work abroad, we do recommend that when you apply to university, that you actually just, even if you're thinking about it, it is better to just apply for that course with study abroad in the title, for instance, because you can always decide later on if actually, oh no, actually, I don't want to go study abroad after all. But a little advice I'd give is, if you're thinking about it, add it on. So thanks, Vari. Thank you. Millie.
Yeah, I also made use of, I don't know if it was the Careers Hub, but I was definitely in contact with someone who, towards the end of sort of coming nearer to graduation, I was in contact with them to sort of get some feedback on my CV and cover letters. That was really helpful when it came to applying for roles and sort of understanding how I could better myself in that way. And I also think university gives you so many contacts, which are really helpful. So, as an example, like through my publishing module, which I did in my final year, the seminar leader that I had for that, who also I think oversaw the module, had obviously previously been working in that industry. So they have a lot of contacts that are available to you and can give you lots of advice about moving into different areas. It was through that I think someone that seminar leader had known had reached out and had a few internships opening up. So I was able to do an online internship whilst I was studying, which was really helpful. So there are just lots of different ways you can get experience and contacts, which is super helpful.
Thanks, Millie. It goes to show networking is really important, and that's really interesting as well that you had an online internship while you were studying as well. That's something you can all think about in the audience. See if that's something that could be possible for you. And Kerry.
Yeah, I found the careers team really helpful at Career Zone, and it was great. They looked at my CV and gave me tips. But also it was really useful in when I left university. I still had access to that. I'm not sure how long you have it for after uni, but I found it really invaluable. I think definitely for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
I think it's 3 years, I think,
yeah,
but I'd have to check. I'd have
maybe.
to check that. I'll fact check
Yeah.
it and see.
Yeah, that was really useful. And also I'd just say there are so many talks and events put on by different societies while you're at uni, and the university itself puts on different events and talks. So that's great to go along to if they're career specific. Like I've mentioned before, that I went to some that were similar to this, like working in publishing, and there were people who were in that career that were talking about that. But also just lots of really interesting talks about different subjects, just to give you an idea of other things you might be interested in or want to go in. So there's definitely always lots going on.
Thanks, Kerry. I had a very quick Google while you were speaking there, and yes, it is. I fact checked. It is 3 years
Oh,
after you
amazing.
graduate.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for your answers. A question I can see here in the chat is, how could I get work experience in marketing as a Year 12 student? Millie.
Um, yes, I think year 12, so you've just started college. So I think, like I said earlier, one of the most accessible ways I think you can get into it is just anything you can do yourself, any way you can get hands-on with it. So social media is probably one of the most accessible ways. So literally just set up a social media account, practice how the platform works, have a little research about different trends that are upcoming and the way things are moving, how the industry is changing. I think even down to like playing around with TikTok and understanding how you can edit content in the app, or using Instagram, how can you add text to something, that sort of thing. Maybe play around with Instagram highlights just to get an understanding of like what's possible in different platforms. um, and then I think, yeah, just have a little think about sort of the route to university, and have a little research about what different opportunities might be available to you moving forward as well, because there's definitely a lot out there, even if it might seem a little bit unknown to begin with. And then I say, as again, back to networking, it's definitely worth just reaching out to like local companies and things like that, and just seeing if there's anything you can get involved with. There's no harm in sort of sending an email, and just seeing. I'm sure that a lot of people will be willing to help. So there's a lot you can do, definitely.
Thanks, Millie and Kerry.
Yeah, I know I don't work in marketing, but I was just thinking, on LinkedIn, they have lots of free courses where you can learn about working in marketing, for instance. And I know there'll be so many things out there where you can just upskill yourself, even if you don't get specific work experience. Or even things like learning how to use certain software, just going and doing YouTube tutorials on how to, say, use Canva, that kind of thing. So I think it's definitely just worth looking at if there are any free online courses you can do, because I'm sure there's a lot of resources that will be available for you.
Thanks, Kerry. And I can see Millie, another hand has popped up. So over to
Yes,
you.
I was just going to add to that. LinkedIn is definitely really handy. There's a lot of resources there. I think Google also have a few free resources which are really useful. And I definitely take a look at the options that are available through things like the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So I actually managed to do like a day course through that, which when I went for my current job was really helpful. Now being in the role, I've managed to do a lot more training in that area, which has been offered through my job, which has been really helpful. But I think they probably have a lot of resources which are available too. Some you may have to pay for, but it's definitely worth just keeping in mind, sort of keeping it in the back of your head. There's definitely different courses and different training you can do to sort of develop further.
Thanks, Millie. Thank you. And thanks, Kerry, as well for before. Another question I can see in the chat is, what does a typical like day or week look like for you? And what's your working environment like? Like, do you work full-time, full-time on site, or are you more hybrid, or are you remote? So yeah, Millie.
My role is a very interesting one. It's very varied, so every day is very different. Um, Surprisingly, my team is actually quite small. So there's actually only four of us in my team, in the digital marketing team. And my role is quite interesting because we have someone who sort of oversees social, so specializes in that, someone who oversees more of like the web development. But my role is sort of between all of that. So I sort of jump in and it's very varied, which is really interesting and it's something I really enjoy. And luckily, I managed to sort of get a choice around if I wanted to specialize in one area or if I wanted to keep a more varied role, and I've really enjoyed that. So yeah, I would definitely say working at the tour is very interesting specifically. We generally work 3 days in the office, 2 days we can work from home. So it is a hybrid split. However, we obviously do a lot of filming, photography, social media shoots. And because we are an operational tour, we often have to do that either very early in the morning or late into the evening. So that could be a 7 a.m. start, it could be way earlier, it could be a 6:30 a.m. start. So I think just being aware that that's something that comes with the industry. And social media actually as well is it's always going. So it might be that sometimes you have to hop online on a weekend. It's very rare, but in case something crops up, you just kind of have to have that awareness. So definitely worth mentioning that to keep in mind.
Thanks, Millie. Thank you. And Barry.
Yeah, similar to Minnie, my work is quite varied and it always changes. And when I first joined the BBC, I was working with the TV news team, so working on the 27 News channel, which involved weekend shifts and night shifts as well. Not very often, but just as part of the job. But that was really good fun because it meant that every day you didn't know what was going to come in at work. You had to adapt to things really quickly. It could be very stressful, but it was a very kind of fast paced, like active, reactive environment that I actually really loved. And it always felt really satisfying at the end of a long day to have felt like you've been a part of something a lot bigger than yourself, which I loved. But that was fully in the office because we were working with teams in the studio and in the gallery, which is maybe not for everyone, but especially when you're starting out, I actually really appreciated being in the office 5 days a week because it meant that you had that face to face contact and it meant that I networked with people a lot quicker than if I was working from home. And also meant there were more opportunities available to me that kind of cropped up out of the blue. Whereas if I'd been working from home, people don't tend to email you unless they need something. So it was pros and cons of both. And then now, currently working in the audio department, I work in the podcast team, and that's really varied. So that's our news podcasts, but also our Radio 4 and World Service programs. So last week I was working on a week-long project. This week I'm doing a kind of 3 days a week production where the program goes out. And then in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going on to a project for a month where we're doing a documentary episode. So there's really so much to do, and you get to pick and choose within that what areas you like and try new things. So the documentary I'm working on is one that I pitched. So it's really nice to get a rounded experience of all of the different elements and get like different pieces of work that no day and no week is the same, which is quite annoying to answer your question, but actually in reality is really nice. Yeah, definitely.
Not at all. That was really interesting to hear about. And it goes to show, like, hearing about different work patterns. I mean, that's something that's developed more and more in a post-COVID or post-pandemic world as well, is that a lot more workforces and organizations are, maybe going more hybrid or more remote. Some are a bit more on site. So that's something that you can all think about who are in attendance today, like when you're looking for jobs and is finding like what works well for you and what are you it's another angle to look at when you're looking for work in the future. And it's something that you can kind of find out through university as well. Like you sort of find out, are you somebody who, like for example, when I was at university, I had some friends who did all of their work on site all the time. They did all of their essays in the library and they lived in the library pretty much. Whereas, for example, I myself and other friends did everything at home. Did everything at home. Did all their essays. Did all their essays at home. But some people prefer to have that separation. Some people like working from home. So that's something you can all think about as well. Kerry.
So I work in the office pretty much every day, which is just personal preference, especially because we have a lot of bakers in the office. So I like being in. It's nice. But I'm in contact with lots of other publishers, and most of them are hybrid now, I would say. But my day to day, I would describe in a very short way is reading books and deciding if we'd like to turn them into an audiobook. So say if like Penguin have a book coming out next year, then they might contact us and say, "Oh, would you like to read this book? And do you think you want to do the audiobook of it?" And then we might have a read and say, "Yeah, this is a great book. We definitely want to do it." And then we'll record it and put it out to Audible, etc. for them. So that's the main bulk of my job. But I really like in my job that is so creative and it can be very like, personal in terms of like pitching books to each other. And we have a meeting each week where we talk about the submissions we've had in, and then we have to pitch to each other of like, I really want to publish this book. So we only have so many books that we can do each month. And we get to decide the covers as well for the audio editions. So that's really nice to have that aspect. And it's just fun, I think, working at a smaller place means we get to do a bit of everything as opposed to working in a bigger place. So I just personally really enjoy that. Um, and otherwise, I would just add that, as I said before, publishing is very social. So we do maybe like once a month, we'll go to a launch party for a book coming out, or someone will take us out to dinner to pitch books at us for us to do for audio. And actually, a couple of weeks ago was London Book Fair, which is the biggest event in the publishing calendar. So um, it's not actually how it sounds. It's not really like open to the public for people to go and just buy books. Not like how when you have book fairs come around to school. It's more so everyone in publishing goes and has their meetings with everyone all across 3 days. Um, so yeah, so there's a lot of meetings, a lot of socializing, but ultimately a lot of reading and just a love for books.
Thanks, Kerry. Thank you so much. And Jemima.
Yeah, similarly, my work week and work day is really varied. I also work in quite a small team, which there's four of us in our fundraising team at Polka Theatre, and just to put that into kind of context, that between the four of us, we're raising about £1 million for our organisation. So there is a lot of kind of everybody doing different things all at once. So for me, that might be bringing a donor to come and see a show that we've put on, or it might be taking them to see a workshop in schools, and or it might be calling someone to really understand why they support us as an organisation, and really, or writing to them to say thank you. I also put on all of our fundraising events to drive that income as well. So that might be organising a big Christmas fundraiser or a big Christmas fundraising campaign. It might be putting together behind the scenes events, so that where I'm in a children's theatre, donors and their children might come and see how a production's brought to life, where they get to meet the cast and go behind the scenes. It might also be putting together quarterly supporters newsletters, reviewing larger budgets, or just shaping the fundraising strategy over that year so that we can make sure that we're hitting our targets. So really, with the work that I do as well, where the arts and funding, sometimes it's harder to come by than ever before. So it's being quite creative and thinking outside of the box and problem solving as well, which I quite enjoy. But really, the same kind of skills are used on every day, whether that's communicating, whether that's by speaking to people, whether that's writing something down, it's that problem solving, event management on a larger scale, but also being in a team where everybody loves theatre, everybody loves the arts. I know with like Kerry with publishing, everyone's speaking about books. Similarly, working in a theatre, that's all we speak about as well. And it's a really nice opportunity to work in a theatre like that, but also be behind the scenes to ensure that the work's created and that young people can access theatre. So it's very rewarding.
Thanks, Jemima, and thanks everyone in general. I think we're coming so close to the end of the panel now. Oh, where does the time go? I can see before I ask the final question, I can see that there were two questions in the chat about CVs and interviews. So maybe we'll keep it fairly short and sweet. But the questions that came in were, what do you think on a CV or at interview helps you stand out? And then the other question was, what makes CVs? Well, actually, I realize it's the same. It's a very similar question, basically, which is what do you think on a CV or at an interview helps you stand out in the workplace or to universities? Jemima.
So I was recruiting last week, so I feel like this is really relevant. And I think, well, at Polka, we have application forms, so sometimes we're not always looking at CVs, but I can certainly speak for filling in an application form or also just for interviews as well. And I think particularly with the rise of AI, individual voice and hearing your own personality and passion come across, I think it is increasingly difficult, especially with entry level roles, to really break into an industry. And we saw a lot of different applications that I read mainly by myself or within the team. So I think it's being able to, in those cover letters, just really demonstrate your passion and trying to really, as well as obviously hitting all the job description points, just why you really want this job and why that company, like tailoring everything you do as much as you can, just so that you stand out. And I think people that can demonstrate why they are connected with their own values or passion to the organization and really bringing that to life were people that we wanted to see in the interview room. And then once again, answering the questions really concisely, clearly, a way where you can really demonstrate to the point that answers their question, but shows your own passion as well, would be my biggest tips.
Thanks so much, Jemima. And Vari.
Yeah, I'd say similar. I think demonstrating that you have experience in whatever you're trying to apply for, even if it's not direct experience, but it's similar, drawing on that to show that you've put work in to develop your skill set towards whatever you're hoping to do is a massive plus. And also then exactly what Jemima said, I think it's passion. I think it's answering the question of why are you a good fit for the job, but also why do you want that job, or why do you want to work at that specific place? That so many jobs have so many applicants now that I know how long it takes to do a job application, but if it's a job that you really care about, taking the time to research the company, if it's in journalism, put in an example of a piece of journalism they've done recently that you loved and why you loved it, and just kind of thinking about what you can bring to that role and what you can learn from that company that makes you a good fit. I think they just want to know that you've taken the time to apply to them with purpose, especially with, as Jemima was saying, the AI kind of scanning the first level of applications, making yourself stand out is what counts. Even though it takes more time, it pays off. And then as soon as you've got your way in, you can then just kind of build from there and keep developing. But the more you write, the better you'll get. The first one applications I did were absolutely rubbish. So even though it takes time, just working on developing them, it means that in the long run, you're saving yourself time and energy in the future.
Thanks so much, Vari. Millie.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that in terms of like any experience you can sort of show, whether it's in an interview or on your CV is really helpful. Anything you can add to sort of build your portfolio. any evidence you can give of sort of previous projects you've worked on, and also showcasing all of the soft skills you have is really important. But I also think if you're specifically looking to go into something, which I'm assuming a lot of you are, within the creative industries, to definitely think about ways that you can really make your CV creative. So when I graduated university and was applying for roles, and specifically applying for my role now, I knew that, realistically, there are probably going to be a lot of people applying for these. So how can I make mine stand out? So I decided, again, I don't know how many of you are Harry Potter fans, but I decided to actually design mine in the style of like the Marauders map. So to make it like visually stand out. So when people were sorting through those applications, even if it caught someone's eye, they're more likely to have a little look through it than they would someone who's clearly used like a template or something like that. So I think what Jemima was saying about sort of showing your passion, letting your personality shine through a little bit was really helpful. And when I actually got the job and was speaking to my manager about the process, she did mention that was something that stood out. And when my CV came through, it was something they were all talking about. So I think it's just definitely thinking about different ways, aside from just the content that you're putting in it, how you can actually present the information about yourself is really important.
Thanks, Millie. Thank you so much. And before I get to you, Carrie, I know Jemima, you have to head in a moment. So I am going to just jump ahead. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you, Carrie, in a moment. So I'm just going to ask the final question, just to give Jemima a chance to answer that before I come to the rest of you, and also come back to you, Carrie, for your answer about CVs. Apologies that we're running over a little bit. You've all been asking such good questions. So, Jemima, I'll just let you know before you have to go. The final question was, what do you love most about your job? And if you could give one piece of advice to students in the audience about their future, what would it be?
What I love the most about my job is one of the programs that we offer at Polka is we give away 9,000 free tickets each year for children to see theatre for the first time. And children coming to the theatre, they're seeing it for the very first time and watching them experience theatre when they might not have had the opportunity otherwise. And the joy in the room and hearing them scream as the lights go down, and the way their faces light up is one of the most rewarding things about my job. And it's why I do the work that I do, because I benefit so much from the arts and through accessing opportunities as a young person. So being able to do that is the most rewarding thing of my job. And my job essentially is just to be able to be the conduit to people that give, and to inspire them and to feel as passionately as I do. So that's by far the best thing about my job. But any advice I would give, that was the correct question, wasn't it?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was right. Just advice to any students in the audience or
Yeah.
watching this later about anything about their future, really planning
Yeah,
for the future.
definitely. I think we've touched on it throughout, but I think it's just do what you enjoy, pursue what you're passionate in, and you will find what you want to do next. If you enjoy something, that is by far the most important thing, whether that is studying art, whether that's English, whether that's drama, or whether that's, oh, I love history and I want to just do the things I really enjoy. And I think that will then help you pick what you want to study your degree in. And throughout your course, you'll find modules that you really enjoy and are passionate about. And yeah, that'll help you then find a career. But I also wouldn't worry too much. There's no pressure to decide now and to feel like you need to commit to one thing. It's fine to change your minds. It's fine to try things, and that's not for you. And then you can, just take things one step at a time. And then, that's my advice, really.
Thanks, Jemima. Thank you. And if you have to jump off at any point, no problem at all. It's been great having you as a
Great.
panelist. So
Thank you. But I will leave now. But thanks so much, everyone.
thanks, Jemima. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye. Oh, great. So I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you, Carrie, in that case, which was going back to the thing about what makes CVs and what makes CVs stand out and interviews stand out.
Yeah, I think it's okay because everyone covered the most important things anyway. The only thing I'd add to that is just by the time you get to interview stage, someone told me that pretty much probably if you're at the interview, you can do the job, you can all do the job. So I think honestly just back yourself. And I think there's always so many people applying to jobs and people can be trained to do it. So I think if you're a nice person, then that definitely stands you in very good stead because the people will want to work with you. And while I'm here, should I go on to what I love most about my job?
I'll come back. I can come back to it in a
Okay.
moment. So I have to do
Okay, well
one
that
quick thing, but that's great. That's great, Carrie. Thank
thank
you.
you.
And I'll re-ask the final question as well. Feels like it was a while ago now. So which is I'll just say because I think we're going to wrap up now. So th thanks everyone for your brilliant questions. And just to remind you all, we've popped a link in the chat to our very quick feedback survey for this session. Oh, please do fill it in at the end of the panel. We do recommend that you click on it now because ultimately, when the Zoom room closes, you'll no longer have access to the link, and we really value your feedback. So do click on that link, make sure you have it, and if you can fill it in before you go, that would be wonderful. So I'll just say the final question again for our panelists, and it was a two-parter question, which was, what do you love most about your job? And if you could give one piece of advice to students in the audience about their future, what would it be? Barry.
I think what I love most about my job is the sense of purpose that it gives me, that I think everyone's spoken about that from all of the different kind of careers that we're in. Jemima mentioned it, that I think it's really about finding a job that you feel adds to your life and adds value. And I think you only know that by doing it. So you might have an idea of what you want, but the thing that I really love about my job is that at the end of the day, I go home and I feel like I've done something I've learned something and I've contributed to something that makes me feel good, which is really nice. And I think that's really important to look for in a career, no matter what that is. Um, and then I think one piece of advice I would give is just don't panic. I think I spent a lot of my time really panicking about, do I apply for this job because it's not exactly what I wanted, or it might not, if I do this, does it mean I can't do that in the future? And actually, the further into my career I've got, everyone I've spoken to who's senior to me, or no matter what career sector they're in, I don't think I've ever met anyone who has kind of like a straightforward linear path of, I studied this, then I went straight into this job, and I've just progressed up the ladder neatly ever since. Everyone takes kind of detours and side turns, and that's how you end up getting to the job in the end that you really love, that you wouldn't have even known about in the first place. So, yeah, I think as long as you are always moving towards doing something you enjoy and that makes you feel good, then that's all you can really ask for. And yeah, just try your best, but don't spend too much time panicking about it, because it will happen, especially if you're going for something that you care about and you enjoy.
Thanks, Barry. Millie.
So I would say there's a lot I really love about my job, but I guess I'm going a bit overboard here, but two of the things that I really love are being able to collaborate with lots of different people. So I think this stems right back to like degree and school. It's just like having those opportunities to bounce these ideas off of people and really sort of be the leaders in what we're doing, and trying new methods and new things, taking risks, which can be a bit scary but is also really fun. It might not work out, but at least we've tried it. Which I think is sort of the nature of working within marketing, which is really exciting. Um, but I also think, sorry, what was the second part of the question? The advice I would give. I think kind of drawing on what's already been said, but not everyone has a direct route. But I think another important thing to consider is definitely not to compare yourself to everyone else. It's very easy to look around and sort of maybe get a bit in your own head about feeling as though everyone feels like they know what they're doing or where they're going. And someone might have gone to uni already having an idea of what career they want at the end of it, and you might not. But I think ultimately you've all got your different paths to get there. And I think the most important thing is that you sort of do what you enjoy and take every opportunity you can. So some opportunities might come up that might seem a bit scary at first. But just give it a go. And I think, for the most part, it's usually not as scary as you might think. And by the end of it, you would have gained some really good experience and maybe even had some fun along the way. So that's definitely the advice I would give.
Thanks, Millie. And finally, Kerry.
I'll try and keep it short and sweet, but I think to echo what I've said before, a thing I love most about my job is something I'm actually interested in. And if I wasn't working in this industry, I'd still be reading outside of my job all the time. So that makes it a joy to go into work. And for advice, a practical tip, Creative Access is a website that has lots of great resources, just information about getting into creative industries. So definitely check that out. And as everyone said, just go with your heart and do what you enjoy and it will fall into place.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Kerry. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up. So thank you so much, panelists. Thank you, attendees. So it's been so wonderful hearing your experiences. And again, thank you for sharing them so openly. As I said before you go, some students in the audience, please do submit the quick feedback survey, which is in the chat, and do click it through before it goes, because again, we really value your feedback. So yeah, once again, thank you so much to all of our panelists, everyone who supported us this evening. This has been wonderful. Just as a quick note, our Careers Insight series will be continuing tomorrow. We've got careers in business, finance, marketing, and entrepreneurship, and careers in healthcare, health sciences, and the NHS, although we got a little bit of marketing today, which was lovely. So yeah, I think that's everything. So yeah, thank you so much, panelists. Thank you, everyone. And hope you all have a lovely rest of your evening. Thank you, and goodbye for now.